Bienvenidos amigos de KB Sports. El día de hoy vamos a reaccionar a este video de JimmyH. JimmyH es probablemente el youtuber más grande en cuanto a NBA del mundo. Y vi que en Twitter había mucha discusión acerca de este video. Aparentemente dijo que Tim Duncan está un poco sobrevalorado. Quiero reaccionar a este video, compartirlo con ustedes y ver qué es lo que opinamos. Le puse subtítulos porque el video está en inglés. Pero si no sabes hablar inglés, perfectamente lo puedes leer y me acompañes a ver este bonito video.
After years of judging, critiquing, hating on some of your hot takes, today I'm gonna share some of mine. It is only fair, after all, that if I put others' opinions up for debate, contention, ridicule, that I do the same for myself. Because like you, I too am just a guy who has a few takes and opinions that I wouldn't dare say out loud in fear of having my ball knowledge put into question.
Yo también, tengo muchos takes que digo, mejor me las quedo para mí mismo porque me da pena decir.
But today, I'm gonna do just that. So here are my NBA hot takes.
Ok, parece ser que es un video en el que simplemente va a dar opiniones basadas.
Today's video is sponsored by DraftKings. The NBA season is heating up, and that means bigger plays and even bigger wins. And I'm teaming up with DraftKings to bring you a whole new way.
Ok, a mí DraftKings no me patrocina, así que lo siento mucho, DraftKings.
Players, teams, eras, opinions that I know are probably subjective and completely false, but I usually try to stay as objective and non-biased as I can. Do my research, refer to film, gather consensus when necessary. But in this video, I'm doing none of that, and instead sharing with y'all 5 of my NBA hot takes. All right, so my first hot take is kind of hard to admit. I almost don't even want to say it out loud, but I'm going to. Tim Duncan has become overrated. Now, before you
Tim Duncan se ha convertido en un jugador sobrevalorado. Eso es lo que dice el youtuber más importante de la NBA en el mundo. Vamos a ver sus argumentos.
Bring out the torches, hear me out. When Tim Duncan was playing, there were maybe a few seasons throughout his 19-year career where he was considered the best player in the world. No one ever thought he was better than Shaq in his prime. Many fans at the time argued that KG had a higher peak than him, although I would disagree with this. And in the moment, for a good decade or so, you would be in the minority if you thought Tim Duncan was a better basketball player than Kobe Bryant. But you have a very solid, well-rounded.
Esto es justo lo que yo decía en el debate con Diego Willis. Absolutamente nadie te decía que Tim Duncan era mejor jugador que Kobe Bryant en esas épocas. Yo empecé a ver básquet a partir de la temporada 2008-2009. Absolutamente nadie decía que Tim Duncan era mejor que Kobe Bryant. Nadie, cero. Todos los jugadores decían que Kobe era la cara de la liga. Todos decían que los mejores eran Kobe y LeBron. Punto final discusión. No había debate. Esto para mí ni siquiera es una hot take. O sea, ¿realmente qué tantas veces fue Tim Duncan el mejor jugador del mundo? No lo sé. A mí no me tocó el prime de Tim Duncan. Me tocó ya 2008, 2009. No eran las mejores etapas de Tim Duncan. Así que no lo sé. Pero lo que yo vi, los jugadores no se expresaban de Tim Duncan como si fuera el mejor del mundo. Es la realidad.
Tim Duncan was a better basketball player than Kobe Bryant. By the time Duncan retired, he was very underrated. Most fans had him somewhere around 15th, maybe just outside the top 10 greatest players of all time. But miraculously, over the past 5 years or so, Timmy has creeped from 15th to 13th to top 10 to where he probably should be, somewhere around 7, to now all the way within people's top 5, even top 3 players ever.
Sí, hay gente que yo he visto que ahora lo ponen a Tim Duncan top 3.
Isn't just a small community of Tim Duncan advocates pushing this propaganda. I'm seeing Duncan floating anywhere from top 5 to top 3 all time for a lot of fans these days. Even people claiming he may just be the greatest basketball player of all time. Guys, Tim Duncan was incredible, the best power forward of all time. He is not one of the 5 greatest players ever, let alone the GOAT. And I think what's
Jimmy está cocinando, Jimmy está cocinando. Así como yo cociné a Diego Willis en ese debate. Por cierto, si lo quieres ver, puedes buscarlo en este canal. Tim Duncan no es el mejor jugador de la historia. No es top 5, no es top 3. A partir de ahí podemos tener cualquier discusión acerca de Tim Duncan. Pero Tim Duncan no era mejor que LeBron, no era mejor que Kobe, no era mejor que Jordan, no era mejor que Magic, no era mejor que... Me atrevo a decir que no era mejor que Curry, tal vez. Probablemente tenga mejor carrera que Curry, pero como jugador, ¿realmente era mejor que Steph Curry? ¿Realmente era mejor que Shaq? No lo sé, no lo sé. Repito, a mí no me tocó el prime absoluto de Duncan.
Probably happening
Me tocaron buenas temporadas de Duncan.
here is younger or maybe newer fans of the NBA are looking at his accolades and accomplishments and comparing them side by side to other greats and saying, wow, this guy really did a lot
Sí.
and his resume is better than just about anyone ever. But if you watch
A ver, 5 veces campeón de la NBA, 3 veces Finals MVP, 2 veces MVP, 15 veces All-NBA, 15 veces All-Star, 15 veces All-Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, All-Star MVP. O sea, sí tiene una carrera increíble, pero no era mejor que Kobe, no era mejor que LeBron.
watched Duncan's career unfold in real time, you would have felt the impact he had on the league and on the Spurs, but you would have also felt the massive role that the Spurs system and Popovich's coaching excellence played on Duncan. He was unbelievably consistent. He was a defensive juggernaut. He was a leader. But Duncan was also the beneficiary of the most competent organization in the league that prioritized team ball and continuity. From Hall of Fame teammates he played with for the majority of his
No lo sé, no sé si ese es el argumento, porque a ver, Kobe también tuvo mucha ayuda, Shaq también tuvo ayuda, Magic tuvo ayuda, Karim tuvo ayuda, LeBron tuvo ayuda. Y muy probablemente la razón por la que San Antonio tuvo éxito se llama Tim Duncan. Muy probablemente la razón por la que Greg Popovich pudo haber sido Greg Popovich es porque su jugador principal era Tim Duncan. Muy probablemente Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard crecieron porque su estrella principal no necesitaba tanto el balón, porque su estrella principal defendía un montón. Entonces, muy probablemente la cultura de San Antonio en gran parte es por Tim Duncan, porque Tim Duncan era un tipo callado que no se metía en problemas, todo esto, pero al mismo tiempo digo, no era mejor que Kobe, no era mejor que LeBron, o sea, todo esto puede ser verdad al mismo tiempo.
His career to all-time greats that played big roles in helping the Spurs win championships, Duncan was always surrounded by winning culture and winning teammates. This is by no means a knock on him. In fact, he was a big reason why the Spurs were so cohesive. But only in retrospect would you look at his laundry list of accomplishments and neglect all of the details that came with it. For many years, the Spurs as a team and organization were seen as this staple of excellence more than Tim Duncan was as an individual. It wasn't Duncan and the Spurs. It was
Eso es cierto, eso sí es cierto también. O sea, se hablaba más de lo increíble que eran los Spurs como organización, no tanto de que Tim Duncan es un talento generacional. La verdad.
just the Spurs. They were one and the same, not this pretty good team with a fantastically great player on it. But if you just look at his resume, you wouldn't know that. You could argue Duncan had maybe a top 3 career in NBA history, but as a player, he's just not on the same tier as Jordan or LeBron or Kareem. I don't know how after he retired.
LeBron, Jordan, Karim. A ver, como jugador meramente, Kobe, Shaq, Curry. Para mí son mejores que Duncan. Como jugadores específicamente. Que tengan mejor carrera. Que en la lista del GOAT esté más arriba, por ejemplo, Duncan que Curry. Eso es un hecho. Pero son varios jugadores que prefiero sobre Tim Duncan, la verdad.
He has slowly crept past Shaq and Bird and Russell and even Magic for some people. Duncan is one of my all-time favorite players, but he is not a top 5 player in NBA history. And it's odd to see a player who was so underrated for so many years become slightly overrated today.
Sí.
Now, I'd like to think of myself as sort of a board member, an executive within the organization of LeBron fans and Glazers.
A ver, parece ser que ya se acabó el tema de Tim Duncan. Número 1, probablemente culmino este video aquí y lo hago meramente acerca de este tema de Tim Duncan. Voy a seguir viendo el video a ver si lo hago el video más largo aún. Pero a ver, sobre todo este tema de Tim Duncan, yo estoy de acuerdo, ¿eh? De pronto, como que la gente empezó a elevar a Tim Duncan a hacer menos a Kobe. Pero los que vivimos en esa época, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, todas esas épocas, sabemos que se hablaba de Kobe, de LeBron, de KD. No se hablaba de Tim Duncan. No se hablaba de Tim Duncan. Probablemente en lo que es 2005, 2006, ahí tal vez. Pero ves a jugadores en esa época, 2009, 2008, 2010, 2011, nadie te hablaba de que esa época era de Tim Duncan. Te hablaban de que era de LeBron y de Kobe. Punto. No se hablaba de Tim Duncan así. Se hablaba de que Tim Duncan era de los mejores jugadores de la historia, todo esto. Pero no se hablaba de que era mejor jugador que Kobe Bryant. De la nada, Kobe muere. Kobe iba para abajo porque muchos nerdos quieren resaltar que estaba sobrevalorado. Y de pronto, la antítesis, Tim Duncan, se eleva. Para mí, Tim Duncan últimamente sí estaba un poco sobrevalorado. La verdad, porque sí es cierto. Ves sus logros, ves su palmarés y dices, wow. Wow. Pero ¿de verdad es mejor jugador que Kobe Bryant? ¿De verdad es mejor jugador que LeBron James? Todos sus contemporáneos dicen lo contrario. No lo sé, no lo sé. Probablemente aquí termina el video, probablemente seguimos viéndolo. Voy a seguir viéndolo, no sé si voy a subir todo.
So this next take pains me to say, but LeBron has sabotaged many good situations throughout his time in the NBA, and his career as a whole has suffered because of it.
A ver, LeBron has sabotaged many of his situations throughout his career. O sea, LeBron ha arruinado varias de sus situaciones a lo largo de su carrera y eso lo ha dañado. A ver, vamos a ver qué es lo que dice.
We all know that LeBron has been held back by some bad front offices, selfish teammates, terrible roster constructions. But what doesn't get talked about enough is how he has gone out of his way to try to make good situations better and has inadvertently ended up just ruining things for himself in the process.
La de Westbrook. O sea, si se refiere a la de Westbrook, estoy totalmente de acuerdo.
Like in 2014, when he decided to sign with the Cavs instead of staying with the Heat.
No.
Why did he do that?
No, esa fue una muy buena idea. O sea, a ver, te ibas a quedar en el Heat con LeBron James, con Dwayne Wade con solo una rodilla. Chris Bosh se tuvo que retirar al año después de que LeBron se fue. Esa fue una excelente decisión por parte de LeBron.
Well, we all know why. The Heat were getting old, Wade was past his prime, and the Cavaliers had the cap space and a budding young star in Kyrie Irving to help reel Bron back to Cleveland. This decision eventually led to a championship, but what if he just stayed with the Heat? With Pat Riley and Spoelstra, where there's culture and accountability, I imagine his career would have played out even better.
Es que es imposible, no se podía quedar en el Heat por el hecho de que si se quedaba, básicamente tenían que dejar ir a Dwayne Wade porque ya no iba a poder cobrar lo mismo y ya no iba a poder rendir lo mismo. Y de verdad queríamos manchar la carrera de LeBron haciendo esta narrativa de que LeBron básicamente corrió a Dwayne Wade, que él fue el que lo abrazó en la ciudad y lo trajo para que al final de cuentas le diera una patada en el trasero. No lo creo. LeBron no tenía otra opción más que irse.
Considering where the Heat are today? Or what about when the Cavs went to back-to-back finals in 2016 and 2017, but since LeBron didn't feel they had enough to win it all, he orchestrated an entire implosion of their roster, which ended up being vastly worse, and then just left them again once things were beyond repair. Or most recently, when the Lakers won a championship in 2020, and instead of reloading with the same roster, the Lakers returned with a whole new team just 2 seasons later.
Que ojo, a ver. En este tema del de los Cavs, por ejemplo, Kyrie fue el que se quiso ir. Y todos estos cambios ocurren porque Kyrie se quiere ir. O sea, eso no fue culpa de LeBron. Lo que pasó en 2018 no es culpa de LeBron. Es culpa de Kyrie.
And then just left them again.
Ahora, el de los Lakers, sí. Lakers, estoy seguro que LeBron puso algo de su cuchara para que se hiciera el traspaso de Westbrook, porque quería jugar con otra estrella. Y eso, a final de cuentas, a los Lakers, yo soy Laker, le salió muy mal a los Lakers.
A whole new team just 2 seasons later. These decisions do not happen without LeBron's okay. Throughout his career, he has been so quick to want more, want something better, and he can't wait around for it to happen organically, so he tries to force these things to happen. And when it doesn't work out, which it hasn't worked out a lot, the organization, the coaching staff, and even his own teammates end up taking the fall. As great as he is, LeBron has tried to play GM way too often in his career, and when he can't or he's out of options, he just moves on to the next new shiny thing. If he just stayed with the Heat, or stayed with the Cavs, or allowed rosters to build chemistry and young players to develop naturally over time, I think his career and the perception of it would probably be better right now. LeBron has willed his way to some of the greatest feats the sport has ever seen, but he has...
no lo sé, quedarse en los Cavs para mí no era opción, y quedarse en Heat por el contexto de que tenía que haber echado a Wade tampoco era opción. O sea, No lo sé, ¿eh? Para mí LeBron ha tomado muy buenas decisiones. La única muy mala es la de Westbrook.
Also sabotaged a lot of good things along the way. Now, here's a hot take for you, and I don't care if I'm wrong. The corner three is not the easiest three-point shot. For years, everyone has said the corner three is easier than any three-pointer, and so there's an advantage to be had there if you use them right. I wholeheartedly disagree. In the NBA, sure, the corner three is shorter than on the wing or at the top of the
Está diciendo que el triple desde la esquina no es el tiro más fácil. Y mucha gente dice que sí. Yo no sé, la verdad.
key. But if you play ball, you know this shot is as scuffed as it gets. When you're looking at the hoop straight on, you just have a wide...
Sí, es mucho más fácil tirar cuando está tal cual derecha, desde la esquina. A mí sí me gustaba tirar desde la esquina, por ejemplo, pero creo que sí era mucho más fácil tirar de frente a la canasta.
Your margin of error. You can shoot long and bank it in. You have a better perception of depth since you're looking at the backboard. It may just be psychological, but whatever it is, you cannot convince me that this shot is easier than this shot. According to NBA.com, this season the league as a whole is shooting 39% from corner threes, whereas above the break, teams are shooting 36.1% on average. Now, that's a substantial difference in efficiency from these two different shooting zones, and it would lead you to believe the corner three is easier. But I think shooting percentage is higher on corner threes than threes above the break for two reasons. One, the best shooters in the league, the guys who are on NBA rosters to drill a few threes a game, usually spend the most time in the corner. And since most players who set up shop in the corner are sharpshooters, the overall efficiency from corner threes is boosted compared to on the wing or at the top of the key. And reason number two, a lot of
Okay, su argumento es, a ver, es el tiro más efectivo de tres porque la mayoría de los tiradores letales de la NBA se la pasan ahí.
Threes taken above the break are pulled up off of dribbles, players flying off of screens trying to square up and get a good shot off, and many times the players attempting these kinds of threes are the best player on their team, but not the best shooters. On the other hand, corner threes are almost exclusively set shots coming off of passes to a wide open man. The very nature of offenses in the NBA makes these corner threes easier than any other threes because plays are often drawn up to get open looks from here from the best shooters in the world shooting set shots with no one contesting.
Sí, es que creo que la razón por la que se dice que es el tiro más fácil es que es porque es mucho más probable que estés abierto desde la esquina a que estés que estés solo desde esta parte del triple, por ejemplo, aquí que le estoy haciendo con el mouse.
Corner threes, especially those real deep ones where you feel like you're behind the backboard, are not easier than any other three-pointer. Now, I know I'm going to catch some flack for this next take, and that's okay, because in a redraft of every player in NBA history...
En un redraft, ¿dónde termina Wemby históricamente? In redraft of every player in NBA history, I will choose Wemby first overall. Ooh.
Just after their rookie season, I would pick Victor Wembanyama first overall. You might say this is just recency bias.
I like
it. You may think I'm crazy.
No.
And you're probably right. But Wemby would be my first pick. His progression, his poise, his confidence, his skill set, his potential. If you lined up every great player since the inception...
Yo no tengo ningún problema con esto. O sea, yo probablemente iría con LeBron. Sí, con LeBron, o con Jordan, o con Shaq. Pero probablemente también iría con Wemby. Probablemente mi segundo pick sería Wemby. O sea, yo no tengo ningún problema con esto.
Of the NBA. And if we're just going off of what we've seen from them in their rookie season, I would pick the kid in San Antonio. Now, my answer may be different if I were to pick anyone before they played in an NBA game. Maybe it's LeBron or Kareem. But based on what we know so far, give me the 7'4" alien. Wemby can do everything on the court. He's got the offensive skills, the defensive ability, and willingness. From what has been said about him, he is like a sponge with information. He's learning exceptionally fast on the court. And I think what's just as impressive as his physical tools, the kid is not afraid of the moment. He isn't timid, he can talk trash and...
Wemby es ese tipo, O sea, Wemby es excelente en defensa, es hablador, es pasional, es clutch. O sea, tiene todas las herramientas en su físico, tiene todas las herramientas defensivas, ofensivas. O sea, no, es una locura.
Take it too. He's got heart, and you can tell he really loves the game. Now, I think some players who are up there with him for the first overall pick in a redraft post-rookie season.
Los números de Wemby en su temporada rookie, 21 puntos, 10 rebotes, 3 blocks, 3 asistencias, es una locura. Es una locura.
Might be Shaq, Kareem, MJ. Duncan was incredible as a rookie. Maybe Hakeem.
LeBron no está ahí. No, es que LeBron entró muy joven a la liga. O sea, LeBron promedió como 20 puntos.
Overall, their numbers are about...
La temporada de Kareem, 28, 14. Shaq, 23 y 13. Damn. Michael Jordan, 28, sí es cierto. Tim Duncan, 21 y 11. Hakeem Olajuwon 20. No me atrevo a decir que es la mejor temporada en la historia de la NBA para un rookie, la de Wemby.
Equally as impressive. But the thing that stands out about Victor is that he's doing this at 19, 20 years old on a minutes restriction.
A los 19 años de edad está haciendo eso, sí es cierto.
He's already an elite two-way player, possibly even the best defensive player in the entire league. And he has the advantage of playing in an era where he is allowed to develop a well-rounded offensive game from the post all the way out to the perimeter, something that Shaq, Hakeem, and Kareem never had.
El juego hoy en día está mucho más preparado para un Wemby de lo que lo estaba hace 15, 20, 10 años.
Improvements he's made from his first game this season to now are already so massive that his progress alone really makes him stand out even amongst the greatest rookies ever.
Totalmente.
And quite frankly, I never witnessed these other players play in their rookie seasons. I wasn't there to see it in real time. And of all the rookies I have seen over the last 15 years or so, Wembanyama is way ahead of all of them. Is this a terrible argument to make here? Sure.
No.
Does that change my pick? No. If you can ignore what we know about these players outside of their first season in the league, and if you had to choose one of them, I think Wemby would go first overall. At least for me, he would. By the
LeBron iría número 1.
time these other players came into the league, they were already relatively polished. Jordan was still pretty raw, and LeBron was playing off of sheer athleticism. But Wemby is having one of the greatest rookie seasons ever, and just by
¿LeBron solamente está jugando con atletismo? No lo sé.
watching him, you can tell he's still just learning how to play in the NBA. So not only is he already incredible, he's just barely scratching the surface of his potential. Now, can this take come back to bite me in the ass? It sure can, but I don't care. If I could choose any player in NBA history based off of their rookie season and their potential and trajectory, I'm picking
Ese partido que le jugó a Giannis.
Victor Wembanyama. Now, I don't know if this last take
No, a ver, lo de Wemby yo estoy totalmente de acuerdo. O sea, bueno, yo elegiría a LeBron, pero probablemente luego escogería a Shaq. Probablemente luego escogería a Jordan. Probablemente luego a Wemby. O a, bueno, Steph o a Kobe. Uy. Pero es que eso es ya sabiendo lo que hicieron Steph, lo que hicieron Shaq. Sí, solamente nos vamos a basar por su temporada rookie. Probablemente sí me voy con Wemby, la verdad.
is even a hot one anymore, but it needs to be said. The 2017 Warriors are by far the best NBA.
Los Warriors son indiscutible el mejor equipo de la historia. O sea, tener a Klay Thompson, Curry, Draymond Green, el mejor equipo de la historia en cuanto a récord, 73-9. Estás a un partido de llegar a las finales, de ganar las finales contra LeBron, el mejor jugador de la historia. Y viene y se te une el tipo que es para muchos el mejor anotador de la historia en todos los tiempos en Kevin Durant. Hermano, no hay nada que pueda competir contra eso. No hay nada. Ni los Bulls de Jordan, ni los Lakers de Shaq y Kobe. Nada. Olvídate, es imposible.
Team ever. Not just the best team assembled, not the best team on paper. They are, by a pretty wide margin, the best, most cohesive team in NBA history. Over the years, people will argue that the 96 Bulls were better, or the 2000 Lakers, or if they're really out of their mind, they'll say the 86 Celtics. But no, the 2017 Warriors would dog walk any team you put in front of them. They were so good that it pissed people off. They were so good that everyone unanimously agreed that it wasn't even fair. It's been long enough now that the painful hopelessness that this team inflicted upon NBA fans around the world has subsided. But I'm sure
Son los peores años como fan de la NBA. Los años de Warriors KD fueron horribles porque ya sabías quién iba a ganar.
we can all still remember just how overwhelming this team was. They made really good teams look incompetent. I mean, they had everything. Arguably the greatest player in the world at the time, the greatest shooter ever at the peak of his powers, the most versatile defender in the league, arguably the second greatest shooter ever, and somehow still managed to have a very solid, well-rounded bench. And not only did they have the most talent.
No, a veces se me olvida que está Iguodala también en ese equipo, que estaba Yabel Magui, que estaba Sean Livingston. No. O sea, me da pesadillas nomás de recordar esos tiempos.
But all of that talent worked really well together. All of their skill sets and intentions meshed about as well as a team could. So not only were they the most loaded team in NBA history, they all bought in, and they all just wanted to win. So I not only think they're the best team ever, I don't even think it's close. Pick any other team to go against them, specifically the 2017 version of the Warriors, and the opposing team would be lucky to sneak 1, maybe 2 wins in a 7-game series. And those are 5 of my NBA hot takes. Hopefully I didn't alienate every NBA fan throughout this process. I just think it's only fair that after sitting on my high horse and judging everyone else's takes, I share a few of my own. So please go easy.
Excelente video de JimmyH Roller. La verdad me gustó mucho. Vamos a darle su merecido like. Vayan y síganlo. Hace los mejores videos de NBA en el mundo. Es indiscutiblemente el mejor youtuber de NBA hoy en día. Tiene casi que 1 millón de views por video. Y nada, es un tipo al cual admiro mucho. Y si quieres verme en vivo, puedes seguirme en Playback. Voy a estar dejando los links en la descripción. Sígueme en Playback. Aquí es donde hago streams viendo partidos de la NBA de manera legal. Puedes ver el partido junto conmigo. Aquí en Playback te doy acceso VIP. Lo puedes estar viendo conmigo. También pienso estar haciendo streams reaccionando a este tipo de videos, hablando de otras cosas de básquet y nada, pasando un bonito momento con ustedes, mi comunidad de cabisexuales. Y si quieres ver más contenido mío hablando de otras cosas que no tienen absolutamente nada que ver con básquetbol, puedes seguirme en mi canal llamado Cabi TV, en el que hablo de otras cosas. Y nada, déjenme saber qué es lo que piensan de todo este video en los comentarios. El tema principal fue el de Kevin Durant, el de Tim Duncan, y a final de cuentas nos fuimos a otros temas como el de Wemby, el de LeBron, el de los Warriors. Lo voy a subir completo este video. No me importa que tanta gente lo vea. Me gustaría que se viera completo. Muchas gracias. Síganme en Instagram, Twitter, en Playback, en todos lados como Cabi Sports. Los voy a estar siguiendo de vuelta. Nos vemos muy pronto. Bye bye.